So Neil, we've been getting a lot of questions on the channel. People are getting a fit for the first time and they're not sure what they should be looking for when they're getting a fit. Is the fitter doing the right thing? So I was wondering if you could share with us what they should be looking for while getting a fit. And before you do that, I understand as a bike fitter, you're moving into a new place. Is that right? You finally found a place in Queensland
that's willing to accept me. Yeah. Finally, I live here on the Sunshine Coast, and I've been primarily working out of Brisbane, which is an hour and a bit drive down the Bruce Highway, which is soul destroying at 5:30 in the morning. So I finally found a location up here. Down in Kawana at the Sports Hub, which is an elite level sort of multi-sport training facility. It's really cool. Really happy to be starting there next week, and I'll take a bit of footage for you and show you around. And I'll be there as my primary location from here on in, and it's sort of hour and a bit north of Brisbane, so not too far for people in southeast Queensland to get to. And there is an international airport near here, just in case. I do get a lot of international clients coming into Brisbane when the COVID restrictions allow.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Has anyone done a 2-week hotel quarantine just to see you yet?
I haven't had that. No. I've had people from Papua New Guinea, the Netherlands, Germany, all these kinds of places, and lots from interstate in Australia. But no, 2-week quarantine would be taking it another step up in terms of dedication to see me. Yeah.
Nice.
So yes, I'm very excited to be there, mate. And hopefully the 10-minute commute versus the hour and a half commute will be give me a lot more time to get on my bike, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm relying on you for that. We're going to get you to do a bit of to train me a little bit and whip me into shape again.
I'm looking forward to it.
I've had 6 months off with a baby, and so finally trying to get my fitness back it's going to be a long, hard road. So yeah, we'll cover that in a different video.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So yes, your question was, I get this question a lot. People contact me and they can't get to me, and they say, what things should I look for? I've got this chronic problem. I've got this ache and pain. This goes numb. That hurts. I need to go and get a bike fit, and I'm not sure what I should be looking for when I contact the fitter, or when I speak to them beforehand, or even when I'm there getting the fit done. And this kind of applies to not so much if you're at a bike shop getting a quick 10-minute setup done. That's a little bit different if you're purchasing a bike and they've got a brief time to size you up. That's a different thing. But if you're going to see a professional bike fitter who's got you for 2 or 3 hours and they're supposedly doing a really in-depth fitting process with you, I've come up with 4. I've had a bit of a think about this. I've come up with 4 major things that you should really, really want to see from the fitter, and I'll go through them now. So these are the 4 things that your bike fitter should definitely do. The number one is to check for. There's lots of other things, but we'll go with the 4 most important ones. Yes. Checking for leg length discrepancies and focusing on the symmetry of your pedaling action in general. This is one that I see. The fallout from this can range from severe to almost nothing, depending upon the person. But there is, in the bike fitting world, there is, at the lower levels, there is a fairly strong disregard for symmetry of the rider. So one leg's doing this, the other leg's doing something different. They're dropping their hip, they're sitting oblique to the bike, and they're getting a one-sided pain or symptom somewhere. Symmetry is not dealt with at a high level by most bike fitters. So you want to find someone who even, like, just the basic stuff, just checks for leg length discrepancies, that kind of thing. There are lots and lots of other subtle nuances in terms of symmetry which can be, neither here nor there. They can be small or big, but if you get someone who fits you for 3 hours and they don't check you for a leg length discrepancy, alarm bells should be ringing.
Yes.
About 3/4 or 90% of my riders have some sort of measurable leg length discrepancy. And I'm talking 2-3 millimeters, sometimes up to 15 or 20 millimeters.
What was mine?
Yours is 6.
Okay.
So that's kind of middle of the bell curve.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not crazy, but it's not small either. That's a decent leg length shim. Yesterday I fitted a guy who left my clinic with an 11 millimeter shim stack underneath his right foot. So, he had chronic one-sided symptoms. And if you're going to a bike fitter because of one-sided symptoms, you got to be checking for things like leg length discrepancies and this kind of stuff. So make sure that they take high notice of your symmetry. They should be looking at you from both sides in detail, from the front, from the pelvis, from above and from behind, and checking for pelvic obliquity, dropping one hip on the downstroke, overextension or underextension of either leg, towing the pedal on one side versus dropping the heel on one side, ankling asymmetrically, one knee tracking closer to the top tube than the other knee, one knee hitching over the top of the stroke, any of this stuff which indicates asymmetry, even stuff like loading one arm asymmetrically on the bike. There should be a focus on symmetry because general positioning is easy. Setting someone's seat height, setback, reach, drop, pretty straightforward. But when you throw in symmetry issues into the mix, that's where you separate the wheat from the chaff. If you've got a person who doesn't really understand symmetry or largely disregards it, alarm bells should be ringing. It's probably not going to be a high-level, high-quality bike fit.
Okay.
The second one, you should. The most complex part of the fitting process is in symmetry and in the person's feet. So most of the complexity comes from cleat positions, staggering the Q factor, staggering the cleat position, shim stacks, wedging, all this kind of stuff, arch support. There should be a lot of focus on your feet. The person should be assessing your feet in detail, looking at discrepancies in the height of the arches, measuring and quantifying your cleat position in terms of the fore and aft position of the cleat using any method as long as it's replicatable. They should be spending a lot of time looking at your feet and your cleats, yeah? That is by far the most kind of important interaction point of the bike is where your feet are. So a huge amount of time and effort should be spent taking your shoe off, adjusting the height of a shim, tweaking the position of that cleat, changing the Q factor and seeing what happens, this type of stuff. If they just go, yep, the cleat position looks good, chuck you on the bike and set everything, again, alarm bells should probably be ringing. I spend a solid 20 or 30 minutes looking at your feet, looking at your cleat position, quantifying it, setting up the arch support, all this kind of stuff before we even stick you on the bike. And then often I'll watch the person pedal and go, okay, we actually need to change this and then tweak that. If there's no kind of attempt to quantify or measure the cleat position or anything like that, you might be in the wrong spot. So
No.
that's number 2. Number 3, looking to offer a money back guarantee of their services, if possible.
Is that what you do?
It's what I do.
Okay.
So on my 2-hour sessions, which are kind of, I call it the quick and dirty session, I can get a lot done in 2 hours, but if you've got some sort of chronic, long-standing problem, which is, causing you a lot of trouble for many years on the bike, I'll often ask you to book the 3-hour one, which is much more detailed. I have a lot more time to figure out symmetry-based issues and that kind of stuff. And that, on those 3-hour sessions, I offer a guarantee. So if the person is unhappy and we get them back in, we try and solve problems, we work our way around everything, and we still can't resolve their problem, I actually give them their money back. Yeah. So
Have you done that before?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Not as much in recent years because I'm getting better at resolving the really weird, wonderful, tricky things. But in years gone past, I've spent upwards of 15 hours with some clients at no extra charge to them, trying to figure out why their knee still hurts or why their feet go numb or why their back is still painful. And I charge them for the initial session, and then if we have to do troubleshooting after that, there's no extra charge for time. And if I just cannot resolve it, I'll give them their money back. Some people refuse it because they go, well, you've spent 10 hours with me here, mate. I'm determined to pay you. And that's okay, but I'll actually offer them, say, look, man, I thought this would be fixable, but it's not. And, it's either outside of my scope to fix it or it's unsolvable. The problem is actually in your knee or in your back or something that we just cannot resolve the symptoms with a high quality position. And in that case, I actually give them their money back. This does one main thing, which is it forces the bike fitter to learn and get better. So when I make a mistake and I don't solve something and it takes me 10 hours to figure out my mistake and solve it, the next time it happens, it takes me 2 hours because I've seen it before. And then the third time it happens, I fix it in the first session. So you get better. It's like an enforced professional development.
Yes, I like it.
Yeah, and it comes with the greatest of motivations, which is,
Yes.
which is money. So if I'm losing money, having to refund all these people, going, oh my God, I need to get better at this.
Yes.
I need to improve what I'm doing. That tends to be a really good indicator of the quality of a fitter. And all of Steve Hogg's people who train with him, as I have in quite a few years ago, we all, as part of the deal with, if you've got Steve's name attached to you and he's sort of endorsed you and trained you in this way, we have to offer a money back guarantee. And all of us were doing it anyway beforehand, but it's a critical thing. I think there's so many people where they go and get a bike fit, which is low quality, doesn't solve their problems. And then they go, well, that didn't work. And then they go to someone else. And they never give feedback to the fitter.
Yes.
So the fitter never knows that they haven't done a good job, and they never learn from their mistakes. So they never get any better. So they're doomed to repeat the same mistakes over and over. And so if you offer a money back guarantee, it's one way of getting feedback from riders when you've stuffed something up, when you've done something wrong.
Yes.
So that's my number 3. The other one, which is sort of attached to number 2 a little bit, we were talking about measure and quantifying your cleat position, but looking super closely at the person's feet. Now, this one, we've got a bug here. This one,
you're going crazy, Daniel. Yeah. There's no bug.
There's no bug. It's COVID psychosis, mate. It's being housebound for too long with sick kids as well. So looking very closely at the person's feet, and I'll go, this is sort of attached to the cleat position one. When they're looking at your feet, you want to be taking careful note of things like foot size discrepancies, one foot bigger than the other.
Yep.
So relative foot size, forefoot varus, which is basically, or forefoot valgus, which is the if you're looking at a person's foot along its longitudinal axis here, if the forefoot is tilted on one side versus being in the same plane versus being like this, if it dropped, if the first ray, the big toe joint, is hypermobile on one side and immobile on the other, if the first ray, which is the big toe joint there, where it articulates with the rest of your foot, if one of them has got a big bulge, like a big lump on it, almost the beginnings of what you would know as a bunion, if one of them's got that and the other one's got a very low profile, if one of them's got a lot of ligament laxity in the rear foot because the person sprained that ankle when they were 15 years old really badly and the ligaments are all trashed and beaten up, these sorts of things are, for a high quality bike fitter, they've got to be looking at this stuff, because this can be the source of a lot of complex chronic symmetry problems, is in the person's feet. And I mentioned it before, but I'll say it again. The interaction with the bike that's most important is your feet by a country mile. There's 3 contact points, the hands, the pelvis, and the feet. But if you can sort of mess up the pelvis and the hands a little bit and the person will be all right. But if you mess up something in the feet, like they've got one foot that's 6 mil longer than the other, and you never attempt to see what happens when you stagger their cleat position to match the foot size difference, or they've got a really unstable rear foot from an old sprain, and you never see what happens when you stabilize the rear foot with heel wedges, that kind of stuff. These kind of subtle things can be, in a huge number of cases, these are the difference between a highly symmetrical, high quality, painless position and a position where their knee still hurts or their foot still goes numb, that type of thing. So the person should be measuring and quantifying your cleat position, as we spoke about in point 2, but looking super closely at your feet in terms of forefoot varus, size difference, length differences, all this kind of stuff. The differences in the 2 feet, left versus right, if the person knows what they're doing, they will spend a lot of time looking at this stuff and record. I write it all down in a big file so that I can reference back to it if we're sort of troubleshooting a problem in the future with the rider and that type of thing. And that's probably my number 4 is taking really, really close notice of your feet. And number 2 was sort of measuring and quantifying your cleat position, which I separate them out because they are quite different things. Yeah. Yes. So those would be my big 4. And if you've got if you've got a bike fitter who's spending 2 or 3 hours with you and they're charging you many hundreds of dollars, as a high quality professional, they should be doing all 4 of those things. And there's a lot of others, but those are probably my big 4. Yeah.
Now, the next part of this video, which is going to be separated into another video, is going to be
3 things your bike fitter should never, ever do.
Okay. We'll look forward to that next week.
No worries, mate. Yeah. Cheers.